It's two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Hi, Jim. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, good to see you, Dan. Really excited about the conversation and the direction that you're taking this podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate like a lot of what you've had to share over the years at so many levels. You're with sales and everything, and I've attended one of your trainings, and I've seen you talk on stage and walk people through things and audiences and stuff. And I appreciate the difference you make, and that you're also your faith and everything, and how big that is in your life, and quietly the lives you're impacting through all those activities too, that probably don't talk a lot about, but I can feel that you do. And so I just really appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you. I received that. It's taken me a long time to be a good man of gratitude in receiving, because it's easy to give, not as always is easy to receive, and so I have worked on that, so I can receive praise as it comes. So thank you.
That is so awesome. That is such a key. Well, let's just dive right into I told you I'd ask this question. I think it'd be a good starting place. So one of the reasons why I'm having you on is, yes, you're a conscious male leader, but also, you have a mental health journey as well, where you've been challenged, significantly in your life earlier on, or I don't know all the stories, but I'd love for you to tell us about at least one of them. Like, tell us a time when you were so challenged in your life that maybe you were depressed, maybe you were even suicidal. I don't know, whatever the thing was, but just really challenged you, and you thought, like, man, what am I going to do now? Could you tell us about that story?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was trying to think of like a very specific moment, and it wasn't really a moment, more as it was a season of my life. And I'm 54 now, and pretty much the first 25 years of my life, I was charging through very hard, and I had a defense mechanism upon me because I needed to protect me, because growing up in an abusive home and being in foster care and living on the streets and gangs, and then being in jail by 19, and spent pretty much the whole first 25 years of my life literally looking for, how can I make sure that you don't take advantage of me? And so the way I could prevent that was for me to take advantage of you. And so that's how I lived. I was very aggressive in the first half of my life. And then the second 25 years was more like overcompensating in the other direction. And it was because I knew that I had done so much damage to so many people, that I wanted to ensure that I would never hurt anyone about anything. But then I became this really passive doormat, and you start setting yourself up to be taken advantage of, but almost in a way that, never in a way that was like, oh my gosh, how dare they? It was almost like, it was like I deserved it. And so neither one of those two journeys were healthy, right? I mean, attacking everyone and everything, and then allowing yourself to be attacked for everything. And all the while presenting this false front, like everything's fine and I'm just normal. So it was really more about those two seasons. And then more like the last 5, maybe the last 10 years has been much more about, where's the balance of those two? How can I make sure that I'm strong enough to take care of life and take care of the things that I need to in my family and all of that, while being, pliable enough to be, to receive, to understand that, it's like being meek, you talk, being in, scripture, the definition of meekness, most people think is weak. And I used to think that too. I used to think in order to be a good spiritual man, you had to be weak.
Mm-hmm.
And, God says the meek will inherit the earth. Well, the definition of meek is not weak. It's having the absolute strength to do everything you need to, but the discipline not to.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing how to use the sword, but the smart's enough to keep your sword sheathed.
Right. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's an important one, for sure. I had somebody we mutually know that was coaching me once that used that exact phrase. It's like, it's okay to use the damn sword, but you need to know when to sheath it as well. Like, yeah, to recognize there's a time for both. And as men, like sometimes they're just like, conquer everything, right? Or in some cases, yeah, we just sheath it our whole life and we're like, yeah, I don't know why nothing works. So take out your damn sword. You need to do that sometimes. So.
Right. Well, do like right now, as this is being recorded, we're, getting towards the end of 2023. And I think manhood in general is at worst, very under attack, at minimum, very confused. And it's not really clear what a man's supposed to be in this society. And because it's been, toxic masculinity and all these labels and all these things that people have, identify and or push people into a box. And I know a lot of men that are very confused, and I know a lot of men that are very angry, as a result. And I think that's a big piece of this whole process here is like, how do you got to know the levels of your strength, and you have to, and it takes the equal amount of strength to not have it to be uncontrolled or unbridled. And it's a nonstop journey, and I think especially with young men, my concern usually is when the guys like my age become a little bit less controlled, because that means they probably held some stuff in along the way and probably did a lot of damage along the way. And, I think, a young man going through things is supposed to, because you're trying to figure yourself out. You got to find your boundaries, before you know not to cross the boundary, you need to know where the boundary is. And so you got to let that wild man run free a little bit. So then you can learn how to discipline it. But if it's always boxed up and bottled in, you don't even know the capacities, of what you're capable of.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was like really pulled back on my masculine as a kid because I saw the damage of being like really strong and then masculine in ways that like when my sister got pregnant, she was like 20. So I was like, 14 or something like that, or 15, I guess. So, but like, I just saw those examples. I was a sensitive kid, so I could see where it could be and I was a shy, introverted kid as well. So I just, always held back, typically, and then, the monster, the Hulk would come out or whatever in different scenarios. Like people would be like, what the heck, where did that come from? Be very small moments, but it would come out here and there and get into weightlifting. All right, I'll bench press everybody if that's what it takes to show I'm actually a guy here, I'm strong, and, going down that path, and lots of depression, lots of anxiety. Just didn't, I just like, let me grow up. I just want to grow up. I just want to do something in the world. I don't want to be contained, in this teenage body, when I became a teenager, and I just feel like I'm limited. I can't do what I want to do and all that stuff. And, it was really, really difficult. And then, but I know like when it comes to like the idea of not doing harm, like I took that to the nth degree. I don't want to look at a woman too long. I don't want to even think about asking her out, much less the idea of anything beyond that. I mean, not any of those things. So I held back on that for a long, long time. And way past most people's age. And then eventually, I'll fast forward to business. Once I got into business, one of the things, first I got into sales out of college because I was like, I need to come out of my shell and I need to start getting persuasive because I know I got it in me. So I started to get in that game. I wasn't very good at it, but I was so damn persistent. I worked so much harder than most of the other people that I was able to be employed a long time in that sales position because people just liked me. And they're just like, we'll believe in you. Even though your sales aren't stellar, man, you're unstoppable. So that was my calling card. And then I went back, became a therapist, all this stuff, my whole story. But eventually, as I got into business online, I'll just super fast forward. I realized, like, through all the things I've learned, hypnosis, all this stuff, all the ways to influence people, I started realizing influence is damn good. Like this idea that it's bad to sell, it's bad to influence people. Like, I actually started to make really deep headway with that, to where I'm like, and then I almost went probably too far the other way. I'm like, I don't care. You're signing up for my program, no matter what the hell you say. Like, and sometimes it wasn't a good thing. It didn't turn out so well. And sometimes it was a good thing. It was like, wow, if I didn't do that, like this person, who knows where their life would have went, right? So I saw the positive, and I had to find my balance within all that. And so I think, like, this whole thing of doing harm through our power or influence or whatever, so many different ways, is a real potential risk. But I feel like now guys are getting, in some cases, are getting so timid and afraid, and then they blow up anyway, and then they do damage anyway. And so it's a big area of mastery for men, for sure. And so anyway, that opened all that up in me, Jim.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. I mean, for guys that are listening too, it's like, this is my invitation is just do some, ask yourself some questions with nobody else in the room. And even just having somebody in the room, even if you're not asking the question of them, do you answer it differently because of who's in the room? I don't know what that question would be. Like, what matters to you? What's important to you? What are you angry about? What are you happy about? And if it's just you in the room, you're going to answer it a certain way. And if there's other people in the room, if it's your kids, or if it's your wife, or if it's a colleague or a neighbor, all of those things they tend to impact how we think, even though we don't want to. Everybody seems to think, I don't do things, I'm not influenced by other people, I don't care about what other people think. That in and of itself is a statement that says you do care what other people think. You're just trying not to let it affect you. And I've played that game a lot of times. I always care what people think. I care what everybody thinks. I care what everybody does. I just know that there's certain things I can't allow to influence my decision. Right. But in order for me to be able to do the things I need to do for my family, for my business, for my industry, for you, there is a certain, I have to care, or it doesn't work. Right. So I have to be able to care, but I have to always be able to navigate what's going on inside of me. Know that there's whatever that needs to be overcome, it's got to be handled, because everybody else needs me to be the best version of me for them. It's our number one rule in our company is, this statement's been in place since we've started this. It's not what you're being, or not what you're saying that matters. It's who you're being while you're saying it that does. And so at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing or what you're saying, who you're being is the most important part of that process. It's about the condition of the heart. It's about the condition of your intentions and how they're formed. The words are relevant, because you could say words with different, you could say 10 different people could say the same words with different intentions, different motivations, different source of strength in that, and they will all mean something different, even though they're the same words. Right.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's definitely that is huge. I mean, the state of being. And when we're talking about, like, with men and this, I think there is concerns. Like, I don't you see it? And because you're with sales, it's like, don't you see, like, people who, even in sales, like, they do get too aggressive. They do go over the line, just as a reflection of, like, in life too, like, or no, they're not. They're, like, holding back way too much, and they're just like, oh, I've learned this yin way of selling, and this is the way I'm supposed to do it, and just surrender, and whoever's right will come in, and and then you're like, yeah, my God, yeah, sure, gonna have way less sales that way. And so you work with that dynamic with the work you do. So right. I'm asking you, like, I'm sure you see both sides, right? I mean, like, it's a dynamic balance in there.
I do. And, there's a few different things in play in this. One is, you're not intended to solve everybody's problem. So everybody, don't try to change who you are to fit the person in front of you. Just make sure the most effective thing you can do, the most important thing you can do is just be directly true to who you are. And if if the way you share the truth doesn't resonate with the person on the other side, that's okay. Right. But, like I tend to be fairly direct, the Bronx Puerto Rican in me comes out, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the most feedback that I get from people all the time when I speak is that they can tell how much I care. And so I just, I care compassion. I'm a very passionate carer, right? So the energy comes through. But at the end of the day, if you believe in what you believe so powerfully, and it's going to change lives, change the world, change the trajectory, the opportunity for the person who is on the other side of this conversation, whether it's right now, somebody listening, you being in a one-on-one conversation or being on a stage, it is your duty and obligation to tell them the truth that you know. And sales is about clarifying conversations for uncovering the truth. That's all this is. This is not about you forcing somebody into anything, unless that's who you're being. If you're showing up as that person because darn well you want the sale and you need the sale and you don't care if it's best for them, well then at the end of the day, it's who you're being that matters. Right. But for the most part, the people who tend to be dealing with these challenges are people who judge themselves for how they're showing up, instead of they're judging them for the act of selling instead of just connecting to the intention of the exercise. I know Daniel, you would never show up and hurt somebody on purpose. I couldn't even see the scenario where that would happen.
Right.
And so if you were to judge yourself for selling something to someone, I would say that is absolutely misplaced and inappropriate. Now, if you showed up with the intention of parting somebody from their money, for the purpose of parting them from their money, then I would say be very aware of your intention, because you might be doing them harm.
Right. I just want you to pay me. I'll tell you whatever you need to hear. Right.
Right.
We're going to be making billions before this year's over. I promise it. I'm that powerful. I'll help you with anything. I'm exaggerating, but I've leaned into those places a little bit before. Yeah. And not because I would, but you're right in that, I wasn't deliberately trying to mislead anybody. I literally believed it in the moment. I would just get so hyped up and I just want the possibility and I want the sale so much. I'd want all of it so much. I get so greedy, saying insane things that weren't necessarily, wise to be saying. And that was like a foible I had. And I think that may happen in men and women's lives, but men do it a lot, where we got that ego and we're like, I can do this, I can do that. And they might overstate their case or understate it. Right. That happens a lot more than overstating in sales. A lot of times, a lot of salespeople I see anyway tend to understate their case, especially women, probably. I don't know, but both. They understate the case for what's going on for the client, potential client, and the opportunities and what you could do for them, versus overstating it. It's usually more what we see, right? That's what I've seen. You work with more sales than I have.
That's so important, because people don't understand that it's, for me, it's God, maybe it's universe, whatever you want to fill in for yourself. But the world works, God orchestrates things, and he puts people in front of you, and he gives, he's bringing these people to you because he wants you to serve them. Your paths have crossed for some very real reason. And if you're so timid as to not, close the deal, consummate the opportunity, bring it through fruition, because you're afraid of being perceived as something that might be not favorable, well, then that is on you, because the world, the universe has already conspired on your behalf. God has already lined these things up. And now he said, here you go, take care of this person. And you're like, well, I don't want to be pushy. Like, dude, this guy needs you. That's why he's here. It's like, you don't have to be pushy. Just be clear, be direct, be truthful. And make sure that you invite them in.
Once they know how much you care, they typically want to come on board, no matter what their excuses are, is what I've found.
Right. But too many people are so concerned with coming across a certain way that they don't They don't even roll out, you don't have to roll out the red carpet and do it all perfectly. You just have to at least extend a bridge. They have to find some way across the moat to get to you. And
right.
that's your responsibility, not theirs.
Right. And that's what I love about you is you're like, did you even make, are you even making the case? Like, like, have you properly made the case, and all that sort of thing. And that's your brilliance with that. Coming back to mental health, I mean, it's all interconnected to me because, again, coming back to power and influence and this idea with men of like, just like a really static, like not totally real thing, but a stereotype of like we go back to the 50s. Oh, the man's the king of the household kind of concept, and women are in the kitchen, and they're not supposed to work so much, stay home, take care of the kids, and all this sort of thing. And so and then the idea is like the feminine was suppressed, and then like the feminine's rising now, and the women want to. I know I'm saying it a way that people are probably like, what is he? He's not for that. But no, that's not where I'm going. But like the women are rising up and like, okay, the feminine's, its time has come. But there's like the idea of masculine energy should be eviscerated. And then men don't know what the hell that's all about. Well, what do you mean? No more masculinity. It's like, it's sort of that kind of vibe that guys are picking up on. They're like, what the hell do you want? You want me to open the door for you? You don't want me. I don't open it. You're mad. I open it for you, you're mad. Like
right.
So how the heck can I win, right? In this world.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. I mean, either, I think the man who knows himself is the man who struggles the least. And the rest of life is trying to figure yourself out. And, the more clear you are and say, hey, look, I know I'm a warrior on the front lines, when you're a warrior, you're slaying dragons. And who's the dragon you're slaying? Right? Are you slaying the dragon of family? Are you trying to redeem and kill the what's the word I'm looking for? But promiscuity, like if I think there's way too much promiscuity in our society these days. I think just free love has become entitlement to some degree or something, instead of just like, okay, there's one thing to not judge somebody's actions, it's another one for people to believe I'm entitled to do whatever the heck I want. Not really. Your rights end where mine begin. It's like you don't get to trample me because you're trying to live your freedom. And you have to understand your role is to protect your first your family, your community, your kingdom, whatever that is, city, town, whatever. It's like you're important locally, wherever you are. It's like the people around you, you showing up as the full measure of yourself, affects your community, affects the people that you live around. I know you and I are, typically tend to be a little differently politically oriented. But and this is not an indictment of Planned Parenthood in that sense, but just from the perspective of they tend to be necessary because there's a lot of things going wrong. There's, it shouldn't be a common thing that that teenage girls should have to run to a Planned Parenthood to get procedures done and have it done and kept from parents and all this stuff. But because I place this firmly and squarely on the shoulders of fathers. If we were better men, better fathers, better leaders, better role models, our women would be stronger. Our daughters would have a greater sense of self and confidence, and they wouldn't seek validation from some teenage boy or from other areas. Like we would just be living better. And by default, there would be a need for fewer things like Planned Parenthood. Or, we're outsourcing our children to communities because we refuse to take the responsibility at home and say, no, I'm going to put my foot down and say, you know what, this is how it works in this home. I'm here my job is to take care of you. My job is to make sure you're safe, make sure that you're effective and successful in our learning things. My job is not to make sure you're happy. That's the lowest on the bottom, on the totem pole. My job is to make sure you're well cared for, you're well taken care of, you have the skills and the abilities necessary to be able to stand for yourself out in the world and do these things. And that requires, we all know you don't win the great things on the end unless you overcome. And that includes in the home. So give your kids chances to overcome and challenge while they're under the safety of your own roof, instead of giving them too much freedom when they're a kid, and then they go out in the world where consequences really matter, and then that's when they're learning the right and wrong. I think there's just way too much passivity among fathers. Very specific. This is a conversation about men. So this is about fatherhood and men, and whether you're a father directly or you're just a role model in your neighborhood. Maybe you don't have kids. It's like, how are you showing up? How are you showing men how to slay the dragon? And it isn't always done with a sword, right? Sometimes it's done with love. Sometimes it's done with, loving people so hard and so well that you just show up as the person who cares. You may be the only person who cares enough to tell somebody the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's powerful and meaningful, and many times lacking in people's lives because everybody just wants to be their buddy.
Right. Well, I think that's the issue I see with parents is, hey, we're going to hang out with my kids and we're buddies and all this stuff. And that's the way to be the best, is there's no hierarchy. We're all on the same level. The kids aren't looking for that. That's not what they need. They need leadership. They need you to be a parent. I mean, in my opinion. Okay.
Yes.
And I see the danger. I see where, I see scenarios and families I see where the kids can't grow up. They're never going to grow up because they're not being taught how to be an adult. I mean, they're not given the opportunity to experience pain and move through it, because that's how life is. You got pain, you got challenges you have to face, and you need to move through that. So I agree with you on that stuff. Like I feel like with my girls, like I care about all of it personally. I do care about happiness to a degree, but totally. And I am definitely much more in the camp of like, how do you feel about how you're developing yourself? How do you feel about how you're applying yourself? Like, because I know that's where the deeper satisfaction is. I think what you're saying is like this namby-pamby happiness. I like playing video games all day. Oh, this is what's good for you. Like,
yeah, no, happiness is vital. I mean, I love my daughters immensely, and I want them happy, but not at the expense of their safety or their success, or spiritual wholeness, etc.
Right. Yeah, I definitely always. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I always kidded my kids, although it's like almost like a semi-serious slant, but it's not true. I'm like, I do got a shotgun, like right. That whole thing. So they realize, like, but I say it because I'm there to say I'm here to protect you. I'm not going to let. But as far as I can do, I'm going to try to do what I can to make sure you're safe, you're protected, you're not going to be abused by others, men or women or whatever, and that I'm here for you. And I think that's appropriate. That's what we need. Not like I don't know, like this idea that just this soft love and we're all just gonna flow, and that's how it all works all the time. No, not always. That's not it. We need some of that masculine strength for as parents, as leaders, etc. We need all of it. We need all the different good.
Yeah. And I mean, it's this, in no way is this to discount women either, right? Women are strong. Women have their moments where they need to be able to engage their strongest sense of their self or their masculine or however you will frame it. But it doesn't mean they need to become men, right? It's like women are still women. And even though regardless of how they emerge in their strength, and at no points are men and women equal. And I don't mean like one is more superior. I just mean we're different. And men need to be around other men. No matter how good your marriage is, no matter how good your relationships are, no matter what's going on, you have to be around other men. We have to, if either you need men that you can be looking up to. I think we always need running mates, people we're running with. We always need pacers, who are guys who are setting the pace for us. And we always need chasers, guys who are chasing us. You should always be in a place where you're reaching up and you're reaching back, because there's always men that we need to be mentoring, teaching, helping, supporting. And then there's other men who need to be speaking into your life. And all it never goes away. I don't know. I think that's how it is until we die, right? You have to be at that place, and I think men need to be intentionally seeking it out, because you have to be able to check in and go, wow, maybe I'm being kind of an a-hole the way I'm acting right now, or be like, you know what, man, that is a really strong man. And one of my mentors in spiritual realm, he was my first. My first mentor in the church world after I got baptized as a Christian in 2011, or excuse me, 2001, And I used to think that to be a spiritual man meant you had to be soft and that you had to compromise, they had put other stuff out. And when I met him, he played college football. He was a high school and a football college coach. He rode a Harley. He had, bald head, goatee, everything about him, manly man. You look at him, you're like, whoa, but he was tender to the touch. He had Jesus in his heart, and he could cry at the drop of a dime. Mm-hmm. And he loved truly. I knew when I met him that he loved me. Mm-hmm. And he was the first man that showed me it was okay to be a man and truly love God. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, because I never had that. I never saw that.
Yeah.
I never even had a role model like that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
But you don't learn that unless you're around other men. You have to be around other men. And then there has to be able to be a place for you to be able to share with other men, things that you may not share with your wife. And it's not about holding back and being dishonest, but every once in a while, there are things that I will fear as a man that there's not a huge benefit in sharing it with my wife because I don't want her to feel fear. It's something that's got to work through. And as I can work through it with some other men, and then I can still be there for her. But every once in a while, there's times when you're the rock. And if they're looking at you like, well, if he's nervous about this, I should be really worried.
Right.
And then what? Especially if it was fleeting. It was a temporary thing that needed to just be dealt with.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'd see that where if I'm not being that strength, what happens? Then you're who you're with feel like they got to be more in their masculine, and that's not how I don't believe most women actually want that. I don't care what they say. Correct. They want to experience more like, oh, I'm loving my life, and blah blah blah. Like I don't want to stereotype, but a lot of women have that energy of just being, I don't know what the words are, but just that softness, that yieldingness, that with strength too. I'm not saying the strength's gone at all, fully there, but it's not when they feel like that masculine strength is in there holding them, then that you're right. Then the anxiety comes up and they're like, oh, I guess I've got to be the strength then. And they don't really want to do that. And I don't, and again, I know it's a stereotype. In my opinion, it's probably somewhat of a stereotype, but in general, 80-90% of women, at least, that is true. 100%. They're not looking for that. They're looking for you to lead and be in that stronger masculine energy. I totally agree with that because I've seen that in my marriage. Like I've had to be that strength. And if I start wavering, then also, whoa, we're nowhere, right? Because now she feels like, what do I have to do to make it happen? And when it's like my job to make that certain thing happen or whatever it might be. So
and
yeah.
None of it is, I think there's a big misapplied definition of what the Bible says about men and women. And the man's place is to be the strength and the provider. It doesn't mean a woman can't, and it doesn't mean the women don't. There are so many strong, powerful women in the Bible. The key is your strength doesn't have to be in your masculine. You weren't created for that. Right. But that doesn't mean you can't be a leader. It doesn't mean you can't be, a provider. It doesn't mean you can't earn money. It doesn't mean you can't be, a sought after expert that people need to lean on. It doesn't mean that how many times do we hear it? Behind every successful man is a strong woman. Right. And it's because we all know there's many times where her strength is carrying the family. Her strength is carrying the husband. Right. And we've had that. There was a time when I was going through trying to find me, and I was a lifelong entrepreneur, and Cyndi was she was a 6-figure earner with our benefits and all of that. And that's what enabled me to be an irresponsible, reckless entrepreneur. Quite frankly, I was able to start businesses, crash businesses, do stuff, try stuff, make money, lose money, because she had us tied down. But then she reached a point when she was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I was at a place where things were starting to become successful. Things were starting to work. And she said, I want to retire from my business. I don't like this. I hate how I feel at this job. I hate all this stuff. And I had to step up and say, okay, it's my turn to take leadership and headship of this family and be responsible and be the breadwinner. And all that did for her was allowed her to move over from king to queen. It didn't
Right.
mean she lost power. It didn't mean she was no longer useful, effective, anything. She just no longer had to be the king.
Right. And
I wasn't being the king. I was too
totally
busy being the irresponsible duke or whatever,
leads aside alongside with together as partners in the business. I mean, she's
Correct.
totally doing all that as well. So, I mean, yeah, women can do what they want to do. I mean, that they can be as whatever. They could be billionaires, they could be presidents. I don't care. I mean,
Right.
we're just talking about these dynamics that exist, and that it's important. I am speaking to the men with this. It's like for men to realize, like, that's what's not only what your wife is looking for, your partner, or whatever may be the case, but that's also like what life is looking for from you. Like that's what you're being asked to step into, and from that strength, then all kinds of things are possible. And so yeah, just to realize that, I think that there's this idea of getting back on the mental health of this toxic masculinity is the buzz term. I just put up a post yesterday, I think, on that.
Yeah.
And this idea of toxic masculinity, this idea, I don't even know what it is honestly anymore. Like this idea we've been too male dominated. We're chasing after things, and we're destroying the planet and all that stuff. And I don't know if our political lines are on the same track or not, Jim. Actually, I don't know if I know or but but anyway, but there's this idea.
Here's my thing on that, though.
Yeah.
I don't believe in toxic masculinity, as I think it's a term. Those are two
Yeah.
words that keep getting attached.
Right.
There's just toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Okay.
toxic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It can be to a man, it can be a woman, it can be whatever, but it's not toxic masculinity. Masculinity is just masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have toxic behavior, or you can be a woman who has toxic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not such thing as, in my opinion, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There are men who can be toxic,
Right.
and there are women who can be toxic. There
Right.
can be environments that are toxic, etc. But we just need to let's pull the labels apart.
Right.
Because why do men have to start at that? Why do men have to defend from that position?
This is the identity you're starting with, your toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah. Like why do we have to rise above it or prove our way out of it or something?
Right.
I don't believe in that.
Yeah, we've been put in a
I
box.
believe let's isolate the behavior. And then
I mean, basically, my post said that I don't believe it exists. So
right.
Yeah. So let's, I want to dig into your story more, because I know, like you said, like I had to do all these things or whatever. Like, tell us more about your story. Like what were the threats to you? How did that affect you? Tell us more how you did adapt, how you maladapted, how you adapted for your good ultimately. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because it's been a lifelong journey. I mean, there's still things I'm working out from when I was abused as a kid, from environments I put myself in and found myself in when I was a teenager, running on the streets and gangs, and I've been shot at. I've done bad things to people, things that only God can forgive me for, because there's times when I just still don't even forgive myself for. And I remember specifically, one of the things that really impacted my life was when I was 10, and my mom used to, she liked to give some very severe beatings, and I was in trouble, and I was going in my room, I was waiting for the beating to come, and I remember telling myself that I will not show her emotion. I am not going to cry for this woman. And so I stood there at 10 years old. So she came in and she started hitting me. And I didn't move, and I just stood there, and I just grabbed the end of the bed, and I just stood there. And I think because I did not give her a reaction, she got madder. It was literally the worst beating of my life. And it was like the thing that happened in that moment was I turned off pain. But what was not clear to me at the moment was that I was also turning off love. Like I was turning off the ability to feel. Mm-hmm. So I spent the next 15 years feeling nothing, and life was just scorched earth. And it was so easy for me to destroy other people. I could lie, cheat, steal. I could do whatever I wanted because I truly didn't care about people. Because I didn't care about, I didn't have any emotion. I didn't have love. It wasn't really until I met Cyndi, my wife, where, she was the first person that actually, taught me about love, because she was the first person that I had ever experienced who loved me just for me. Because I had come through a divorce when I met her, and I lost everything. And I literally had nothing. I had a little piece of crap car, and that was it. And so for her to choose me, given all that she had accomplished and achieved, meant literally the only thing she could be choosing was me, because I had nothing else. And so she showed me that it was me that was lovable, and not my stuff or my status or none of that stuff. And so that's what started me on this journey of, oh, wow, there's something else here. And so I've been on that path for, I've done so much work around it and understanding my value and worth. But I know that even in my business, as I move and grow, there are times where, we've amassed incredible success in our business, and we've done so many wonderful things, and God has blessed us so well. But there are still times when I don't feel like I deserve it. There are times when I don't feel, I'm like, man, who am I? Who am I that God would care so much about me, to care for me this much? Who am I that somebody would look up to me and trust me with such important things in their life, as their business, as their finances, as their whatever? And, sometimes those moments are fleeting. They'll come and they'll just be like a little flicker. But my experience has been, it doesn't ever go away. It just, you just uncover more of the freedom that comes with knowing that you've overcome, and the freedom is what gives you the power to continue to move. But it's not because you don't have any more of this fear and doubt and pain and stuff. It's still there. It's just, I know it's not real. I know it's not who I am. I know it's who I was. I know it's part of the journey, but it's something that I still have to reconcile. I still look at it a lot. I look in the mirror and I'll say, like, which Jim am I looking at right now, and which part of it's there? But I've got the tools and the maturity and the track record to know that I've overcome this, that I can say, okay, let's have a talk, Jim, and now we can massage it. Whereas before, it was always like the moment those doubts raised their head, I was fully bought in. Like, yep, that's right. I don't deserve it. You're right. I don't. And then all of a sudden sabotage comes in and whatever else.
For you, how does that show up? Like, it's a feeling of not deserving it, but then how do you act? Like, what response do you give when you're in that place?
Now it's definitely different. Now it's much more, I win those conversations far more than I don't.
Okay.
Okay. It's like, okay, that's not real. And because what it is we all have to just look at the evidence. The evidence is right in front of us. Everybody, no matter whether you're 25, 55, 75, just look at the track record. Look at all of the amazing things you've done. Look at all of the people you've helped. Look at how many people love you. Look at all the ways you have put smiles on faces. You've delivered. There are so many more of those than there are of the other. Right. Unless you are intentionally just ripping through life, destroying people.
Right.
It's not even close. You have one that's a mountain, and the other one that's just a hill. Right. But we tend to focus on that hill.
Look at that hill. I did that hill, right?
Way too much. Way too much. And, I remember hearing Dave Ramsey say one time recently, said that success comes when we find ourselves on top of the mountain. It's usually a huge, gleaming pile of mistakes.
Yeah.
And when we're standing on top of the mountain, it's built with parts and pieces from all the mistakes that we've made. And the more mistakes you made, the bigger the mountain is. So embrace it and overcome it, but don't let it judge you, because without it, you aren't you.
Right.
And that's the biggest piece of this. Like, I would not be me. I would not be Jim Padilla. Here I am today. This version of me, this iteration of me, who I am, would never even have happened if all those other bad things didn't happen.
Right.
And I'm very grateful for those now. There was a time when I was not.
Right. It reminds me of, because I didn't experience those sorts of things, growing up. I had my own different challenges, right? But not that. And but I think about like Tony Robbins too, right? He's talked so many times about his mom and all that things he dealt with, and he says it's exactly the same thing. I wouldn't be where I am today though without my mom. I had to learn to be really strong and persuasive really fast, to save my siblings or, to save somebody, and to help. And how can I transform my mom? How can I transform everybody? How can I solve this problem? And that persistent problem probably like every day virtually in his life, I put him in that space. And that's kind of what I'm hearing shades of that for sure, at least from you for 100%, like same thing. Like, the challenges we've had. I mean, for me too, like, okay, I know I'm powerful. I could win, so to speak, in life. I could have some more dominion. I could have some more fun. I could be more boisterous. I could be more whatever. But let me hold back on that because that offends people. And they say to my family, like, because I'm more real with them than anybody else, probably, right? So they're like, Dad, you believe you could do anything. You believe you could win anything. But I don't show that so much in my business, right? It's like I'm
But
not.
Dan, you have to. I will challenge you on this because you are a light. You're a good man. Every experience I've ever had of you, whether it's in person, whether any conversations we've ever had, when I watch you online or anything, you're always a force for good. You're always doing good things, and more people need that. And so I would challenge you to, don't hide that light under a bushel. I mean, you got to let that thing go. And, I'm not for being loud for the sake of being loud or different for the sake of being different, but I am for the sake of you being the best you. And if the best you means you speak out when you have something to say because it's valuable and it's going to contribute to the environment, then you must do it.
Right.
Instead of worrying about offending somebody or worrying that it might be, maybe this wasn't my time. Nobody asked me for this. So I'll keep this opinion to myself and I'll share it later. Like this may be the only time you have to share it. And it may be extremely relevant to somebody.
Right. Exactly. That's true. Yeah. I mean, these med posts I'm making are edgy for me. I'm uncomfortable doing them, but I do them anyway, because I feel it's important. So, so yeah, I totally, and like you said, with things that you're dealing with, it's a work in progress, right? It's like whatever our stuff is, it's a work in progress. So absolutely. I mean, for mental health for me, yeah, I feel completely confident and strong when I just trust being me fully, is what I've noticed. When I just trust being me fully, I don't care what the concepts are about how I'm supposed to be, who I should be, blah, blah, blah. I just show up as I am completely. That's where everything flows. Everything flows in my life. But I start trying to contort it to concepts, wherever the hell they come from, whether my own consciousness, the collective conscious, or whatever, then yeah, I'm depressed. I'm anxious. My business might be down, or whatever. My relationships are messed up, or whatever. But yeah, that all gets eviscerated or cleared. I want to say cleared. And I just start showing up again as being who I really am. So,
well, we all work through it. We all have to, because of the nature of my household growing up, I lived in a very quiet house. Unless it was like if I was being yelled at or because I was in trouble, for the most part, we walked on eggshells because we didn't want to say the wrong thing and I didn't want to get beat. So I was always whispering or, trying to keep to myself. But then at school and around my friends and on the baseball field or whatever, I would try to overcompensate for that. I wanted to be spoken, because I wanted to be heard. In my mom's house, I was a liar and a thief and a this and that. I was like, I wanted to make sure that I had some sort of value proposition because I didn't feel like I had any value to my own family. And so, but here was the weird part. I was boisterous. I was the one that all my friends would always be like, no, like if we got to go make a case to the teacher, they would always say, no, Jimmy got to go. Let Jimmy go do it. They always wanted me to go talk.
Jim will do it.
I could somehow influence the teacher, or influence the police officer, or the whatever. And I did it. But the return, that was one of the notes that I wrote down before we were talking. It's like reluctant leader. I feel like I've been a reluctant leader almost my whole life. I do it because I'm good at it. I do it because I know I influence. I learned young that when I do it, good things happen for me and for other people. But I never really wanted to do it because I was so used to just sitting down and being seen and not heard and all of that stuff. So I was like, I'm doing it because it serves a purpose. which is, I think, where a lot of our success comes from, because I'm not doing it to be seen. I'm
Right.
doing it because it's accomplishing something.
Right.
And
Right.
so empower every man listening, every person listening to this. If you have something to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Say it. And you can't worry about offense. My personal belief is offense belongs to the offended.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot offend me. I can only choose to be offended, which
Mm-hmm.
means if I say something and you're offended by it, then that's because you chose to be. And so if somebody says something and I get triggered by it, unless it was directly blatant, like, Jim, you are this, right? But if I post something and about anybody, but any person, any race, any people, anything, I'm the one who chose to be offended by it, which is great, because then I'm the one who gets to control not being offended by it and having a response. And the main reason I share that is because I want everybody to be free to share who you are. And you cannot, if somebody else thinks that something negatively about it, it's none of your business. It's their problem. It is 100% their problem to work out. And if you want to work it out with them, you are at choice to do so, but don't do it out of obligation.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Good stuff. Good stuff. I wanted to ask you just one last thing. I want to ask you about this receiving thing. I wanted to dig into that a little bit, because this whole idea of being able to receive is big for everybody, really. And I know that for you it's been something, and then for a lot of men who believe it's just like, you just do your job, you just do it, and it's not about receiving, kind of thing. I pick up a little of that vibe from you. And so what I know Cyndi's helped you with that, your love of your life, but also, what else has helped you to really soften and really be like, okay, I can take that and I can allow myself to receive that love, receive whatever, that compliment or whatever. What's helped you to do that?
It's a perspective that I learned. There's a book called Business Secrets from the Bible. And regardless of what you think about the Bible, or regardless of what your beliefs are, some really good wisdom and practical knowledge inside there for business. But here's one of the keys that are talked about in there, is how the Jewish community in general, which most people believe are fairly successful as business communities go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they do, they've specialized most of their life in allowing everybody else to use their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things he talks about in the book is how in his neighborhood, he has his job, and then other people have theirs. He's like, I'm very capable of mowing my own lawn, but there's other people who have the gift of doing so. And so we encourage them to do it. Somebody else washes cars, somebody else cleans chimneys, somebody else does things. And then the whole community works together, and the community counts on each other, and they all thrive together. But that cannot happen if you don't allow other people to do for you. It's literally impossible for that all to go if you do not let people do for you. And it's like, I can do anything for myself, so why not? But this is one of those things where you just have to learn that it's equally important, and maybe even more important, to the giver than it is to the receiver.
Right.
And I am that. I'm a massive giver. I love to give. I love to give knowledge and praise and inspiration and whatever I can do. And so I have to remember, like, what would it be like for me to give you praise and you go, no, I'm good. It's like, dude, well, you just cut me off. You just robbed me of my gift, right? So we have to be so connected to that we are. It's not, if anything, it's not even about me, but me receiving is my greatest way to give to you.
That's nice. That's nice. I like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just to remember, like, you don't want to rip off the person trying to give to you, do you?
Right.
So, yeah. It's not making it about you, but to just take that in. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. Because I feel like that's a huge, I feel I'm in some ways a really good receiver, in other ways probably not so much. But yeah, I know that is a huge issue for so many men. It's like, is to take in the love and to realize it's, you're meant to receive. You're meant to receive, like, love. I mean,
Right.
you are worthwhile. You are whole. You are well. Like, you're reflecting to me, which I really appreciated. Like, someone like you, Jim, just saying like, no, I see you online. I believe in you, so to speak. I don't agree with everything, but I believe in you. I believe you're a good man, and you're doing good stuff.
Exactly.
And all that
Well, and
kind
here's a little test for everybody, because it doesn't come in, it's not always in a big, grandiose gestures. Sometimes it's the smallest thing, like letting someone open a door, like letting somebody buy your lunch, like, my son-in-law, our daughter, they've been married, I think 5 years now, 6 years. But when he took me out, there were a few times we would meet for meals, and I always went out of my way to pay. And I could tell it bothered him, because I think he's trying to prove his manhood to me,
Right.
And then when he took me out to dinner to ask permission to propose to my wife, he grabbed the check before I could even get it. And he said, "You need to understand that I'm going to take care of your daughter. I will provide for her. You will never, ever have to worry if she's being taken care of." Now, she works. She's a nurse. She does stuff. But he wanted to make it crystal clear. He's got this.
Right.
And so I had to let him. I had to say it meant something to him to pay for my dinner. Right. And I was robbing him of that every time I tried to take the check.
Right.
And I think people don't see that. But here's the little, even smaller ones. In the Zoom world we live in, how many times do people show up late for the call to you? 1 minute, 2 minutes. I mean, is that pretty common, right?
Somewhat common, yeah, for
And
sure.
just because they're running from one meeting to another, and it used to drive me nuts. It just drive me crazy. I told my team, we all know, like, we got team meetings, like 4 people from our team, 5 people from theirs. That's 9 people. If we're 10 minutes late, that's 90 minutes late. 90 units of manpower that just got burned. So I want to make sure we're never late for meetings. And so when people come in, every time they'd come in late and they would say, "Oh, sorry about that," I would go, "Oh, no big deal." But I thought, no, I need to receive it. They're apologizing. I need to receive it and say yes. So what a term I use now is when somebody says they're 3 minutes late and they're like, "Hey, Jim, sorry about that. I had a meeting." But I say, "Thank you for acknowledging that. I receive it."
Oh, nice.
That way I let them know they've got to express it, and I let them know that they were also wrong. But that I acknowledge it and I receive it, and we're good. There's no grudge, there's no judgment.
Right.
But that's not the same thing as, "Hey, no problem."
I have a client that's a running joke. Like, for a long time, we both were always on time, right? All of a sudden, he was always such a militant, because he's from the military, and like starts showing up 1 or 2 minutes late. I'm like, "What's going on? You're late again. You're late again. You always say you're on time. You're not there." And then one or two times recently, somehow I wasn't connected up quick enough, and they were like, "You're late." I says, "I was like 2 seconds late. It just turned 31 or whatever the time was." It's kind of a joke, but I like, that sharpness of like, hey, if I'm not on time, then I need to be ahead of time. Otherwise, you're late. That old principle. And like, otherwise people just start making excuses for everything, and it doesn't serve anybody. I mean, I believe we should be sharp, with things in life like that, like the details, and to do better with that, because to keep saying it's a slippery slope. Well, that doesn't matter, and this doesn't matter, and that doesn't. Yeah, okay. What else doesn't matter now?
Exactly.
I like that you brought that one up.
Yeah, well, it's just a small example, right?
I know it's a
Just
small example.
acknowledge everything, and be in gratitude, and don't diminish yourself in the moment. But you don't have to chastise them and judge them. But let them know.
You are late. What the? Yeah. No, I like that. Like, just to acknowledge it rather than try to protect them. Oh, it's no problem. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, like to really receive what they're trying to share with you. They are sorry. Okay, yeah, I receive that. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So the guys, start small, like the little things. Just acknowledge what people are saying, because I think sometimes we're so afraid to receive. We'll even argue with people about anything because we don't want to receive. I really believe that's true. When people argue, I don't want to receive your care and your attention, so I'll just argue with whatever you say. It's like, let it in. Just okay, I hear you. Okay, I receive that. You don't have to say more. Just maybe to just use Jim's thing there. It's not just his, but I'm just saying, like, what he's saying, like, just say, I receive that. It's always a good starting point. At least you can always say something later, but like, just receive it first rather than doing the dance. So I love that, Jim. Well, I'm grateful to have had you on today. I know you have so much to share, especially with sales and leadership or what have you, all the kinds of things, but you're known for sales. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you or hang out with you?
I really want to invite you to, if you're listening, to just reach out and connect. I've got my Men in Action ministry where we support men to be more useful in service. And we have, meetings that we meet weekly online. And, it's more about spiritual based entrepreneurs, who are pursuing God and pursuing business. And, but just a place for men to be held accountable, to be honorable men of integrity. And so it's a place there. But if you go to my personal website, jimp360.com, Jim P, it's like right up here if you're watching. If not, it's JIMP360.com. And you can connect with me any way that works best for you. Got all our websites, all our social medias, our podcasts and places there. But what I'm going to ask you is just reach out and shoot me a text. Just click on the contact button once you get to the page and shoot me a text. Tell me, where you heard me on the podcast. I just love to hear what's going on. How can I support you? How can I help you further on your journey? Many times I can help you more with my connections than I can with my knowledge. And so I'm very well connected and always happy to share those connections with people who are looking for great solutions for things in your life, in your personal life, with your family, with your business, with your faith, with whatever. I just really care about human flourishing and thriving, and especially in entrepreneurship. It's like entrepreneurship is the greatest force for good besides God, and there's so much more that we can be doing. And if we optimize ourselves as humans, our businesses automatically win. So let's keep elevating the standard for who we are as men.
Man, that's great. I really appreciate everything you have to share, Jim. And yeah, you definitely have resources and connections like crazy. You introduced me to a couple guys recently, and both connections were amazing, and you're very generous with your time, your energy, and resources, and everything. So your expertise. So thanks for sharing today and being willing to be here and be a part of this. This movement, this calling, this love I have to have these conversations with men and to serve men in the world in this way. So thank you so much.
It's needed. It's needed. Let's rise. All right, change the man, change the world. Make it happen.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.